An authority, Uganda is about to be removed from the grey list of countries weak in laws on the prevention of anti-money laundering and terrorism financing after the government complied with international standards. In a report by the Financial Action Task Force, a global body that tackles money laundering, terrorist and proliferation financing, Uganda has completed reforms of anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism regulations. At its October 2023 plenary, the FATF made the initial determination that Uganda has substantially completed its action plan and warrants an on-site assessment to verify the implementation of the reforms that has begun and how it will be sustained. So this morning I'm being joined by Estaben Guidici, is the Senior Policy Advisor at TRACIT. Estaben, it's nice to have you once again join us.
No, it's very nice for us, for the Transnational Alliance to Combat Illicit Trade, to be here with you, Lekan, and Business Age. We have been discussing a lot lately, and this is very good. It's food for thought for us. And well, let's tackle this issue.
So let's make it a bit broader. We'll start from that point and scale it down. For those who may not know, what are the consequences of the Financial Task Force grey list for countries included, and which continent has the most names on it?
Yes, Lacan, thanks for your question. As I started saying, we started talking about these things a few months ago when with TRACIT, we went to South Africa where we produced a report. And we saw that, for instance, South Africa, Nigeria, Cameroon, they have had problems with the Financial Action Task Force in the sense that they have been put in this grey list, which means that they are in an enhanced list. Later to these interviews that we had and the facts that we discussed, we have also produced some reports with TRACIT on illicit financial flows, on grey economy, also in Pakistan, we were in Turkey, and today I'm reporting from Kazakhstan. And why I'm telling you this? Because there are lots of correlations. You ask me directly, which is the continent that has more problems with this? Well, I'm afraid I don't have that exact figure. But today, in what has to do with Africa, we have the good news that you mentioned today from Uganda, and it's encouraging to see other countries like Botswana or Mauritius that they have recently been put out from this grey listing. Now, what's the problem with the grey listing? What does this mean for normal people? Is it going to affect me? I'm just a citizen who doesn't know anything about international economy or financial flows or illicit economy. Well, the response is yes, it has an impact on all inhabitants of a country that is being grey listed. Why? Because first, there is a problem in the reputation of the country, which you may say, well, what that has to do with me? Well, the point is that it becomes the country less attractive to foreign investment, meaning that it's going to be more difficult to have good economic prospects. It has always an impact on what has to do with credit ratings. For instance, according to the International Monetary Fund, a country that is grey listed has an average net loss of 7.6% of the capital inflow. And it also makes more difficult for a country to engage in transnational transfers of money, because other countries that are not grey listed, they are going to put obstacles to receive that. And this hampers the economy, the registered economy, to keep on evolving. And this is ultimately the problem that developing countries or even emerging economies have. How to register the economy, because this is the only way to improve the economic prospects and give the resources and the money to the sectors of the society that need it the most. So this is basically the impact that being grey listed in the FATF list has on countries.
Esteban, you said that it affects investments and of course it affects the finances of these countries that are added to the list. So what about the credit ratings of these countries and of course borrowing costs for these countries? Because we know that a lot of African countries depend on foreign aids, loans, grants, financial intervention from international institutions to finance critical projects in their countries. So when we have countries like this, especially African countries, being enlisted on the grey list, how does it affect their borrowing costs, and how does it also affect their credit ratings?
Yeah, well, with the Transnational Alliance to Combat Illicit Trade, we produce a report on how the grey economy and the illicit financial flows, they affect the sovereign credit ratings of states. This is a fact, it's evidence that we have produced mostly in Latin American countries, also in Central Asia. And what happens, it's demonstrated, I mean, the whole experience has demonstrated that countries that have inadequate regulatory environments and weak institutions make them particularly unprepared to fight the problems of financial flows, and also it has a direct impact on the credit ratings. What are the credit ratings? Well, these are independent ratings that are given by different indicators. It can be Moody's, Fitch. I mean, I don't want to get really technical, but basically they give a rating points to a country, and when it's bad, it's more difficult and more expensive to borrow money, from instance, for the international monetary funds or other investors that may want to lend money to the determined country. Of course, to get out of certain situations, like it can happen in Africa or in other regions of the world, it's important to have access to those credit lines. Otherwise, it's difficult to revamp the economy and to make it start growing. And this is why we see that the gray listing by the Financial Action Task Force, it really undermines the economic prospects for a country from this angle. So there is a direct correlation. This we have demonstrated it with lots of evidence and experience, and that's why we encourage policymakers to tackle these issues, and also for the society to understand what are these problematics, because it's important that we do this all together.
Of course, we are aware that Uganda was placed on the grey list in February 2020 due to concerns about anti-money laundering issues and, of course, terrorism financing. So what are the concerns tied to these two areas that the FATF has been talking about? And why do you consider it precarious for Uganda's image and growth?
Well, the Uganda case today, I mean, I think that it's a good one, and I'm excited about it. I mean, tomorrow we are having a presentation here in Kazakhstan, and there are some correlations that they can be done, though they seem to be very different regions. But we have to understand that Uganda is one of the fastest growing and youngest populations in the world. And this is exciting because there was a mutual evaluation report that was released for Uganda in 2016. This is something, the really granular studies that they are done by the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, and they had placed in 2020 Uganda in the gray list because of many things. In a nutshell, there were mostly in things that have to do with adopting a comprehensive strategy for anti-money laundering and countering financing of terrorism. They also said that they needed to improve the effectiveness of their system in terms of requesting international cooperation to tackle illicit financial flows, developing and implementing a risk-based supervision. This means that all the stakeholders in an economy are going to take precautionary measures, like know your customer, like be careful with the transactions that they're being done, all measures to combat the illicit flows and money laundering. It was also requested from Uganda to demonstrate that the law enforcement and the judicial authorities, they were duly cooperating to counter money laundering. And also, something that is very important is that Uganda needed to address the non-profit organizations, that they can be, for instance, foundations. I mean, how do they get the money? For what do they do it? Because there is a big risk for terrorist financing when these organizations, they are used. Now, what's the good news? That in the last session that the FATF had in late October, I think it was 27 October 2023, the plenary meeting recognized that in almost all these sectors that I just mentioned, Uganda had done a great job. But pending a new meeting that will be in February, and probably they are going to take the decision to take Uganda out of this gray list, they are going to keep on oversighting everything that has to do with the non-profit organizations. That's what the team of the FATF is going to do during the upcoming months. And this has been confirmed by the Financial Intelligence Authority of Uganda, Mr. Samuel Wandera, who mentioned that if Uganda keeps on doing well, there is a big chance that the country is going to be out of this list. And let me tell you that the prospects of the country, they seem to be good. Just because before this interview, I was checking that when it comes to credit ratings, it has improved Uganda, but the outlook seems to be negative. But this is my personal interpretation. Probably I'm wrong, but I forecast that in the future, this might change and might become positive. Let's hope for it. Let's pray for it, because it would be wonderful to see a country like Uganda flourishing and improving these indicators.
And finally, Estaben, of course, the Financial Action Task Force said that there will be on-site assessments looking at the level of implementation of the various reforms and the recommendations that has been handed down to Uganda. So how sure are we that Uganda will be removed from the grey list? You said that they are doing well in terms of implementation. From a scale of 1 to 10, how sure are you that Uganda will escape that list? And what must they now do to accelerate the process?
Well, I'm a little bit driven by emotion today because I see it very positively. I think that it's close to 10 in the positive sense. What needs to be done now is make a full implementation of the recommendation number 8 of the Financial Action Task Force that concerns to the no-profit organizations. It's going to be important to have a proportionate risk-based supervision and monitoring, effective investigations, surveying and monitoring. And I understand that according to the open sources and people I consulted, I understand that this is being the case. So I feel positive about it, but this is just probably my emotions talking today because I think that it's something positive. But let's see. I mean, this cannot be warranted, of course.
Of course, we know that recently Uganda was blacklisted from the AGOA Pact by the West, and that's a minus for them. But this seems to be a plus on their side if this sort of embargo is removed and they can further have a better and more buoyant business climate, and economic improvement might just come to that country also. And we are all looking at the positive sides that might come to Uganda at this point. Estaben Guidici, Senior Policy Advisor at TRACIT, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Of course, we know that financial experts have said that exiting that particular grey list will save the Ugandan government a lot of money, and the government currently spends a significant amount of its money on implementing the AML and, of course, the financial tax, countering financial terrorism regime. They are working to see that those reforms are brought on board and fully implemented. And that might just, in a way, reduce the burden on the country, the pressure on the country, and allow it to allocate resources into other priorities, and of course to have a better economic image within the global committee. We hope that that will happen also. Thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of Business Edge. Do not forget that you can visit our social media platform at News Central TV, download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store, and visit our website www.newscentral.africa. I am Lekan Onabanjo. Business Edge will be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. West African time, right here on this channel. And at the top of the hour, we will bring you the news, so you don't want to go anywhere. Enjoy the rest of your day.